As we saw briefly in the first lecture, for Italians, Italian culture and the concept itself of Italy and Italians begins with the foundation of Rome. In this lecture, I'm going to review rather quickly, I hope, the major phases of the history of Rome and the Roman Empire, and until the moment when Christianity enters into the scene. And Christianity is the topic of the film that we are going to see, or that you have already seen, namely Quo Vadis. Quo Vadis literally means, where are you going? And this is part of the exchange that takes place between Jesus and Saint Peter, as Saint Peter runs away from the city of Rome in fear of being executed, in fear of martyrdom. But let's go back to the myth and the legend of the foundation of Rome. Rome is founded by Romulus on April 21st, 753 before the Common Era. Well, of course, it is a legend, but this is what we were taught in elementary school, and even if they told us it was a legend, we really believed it, and we liked the story of the twins, the she-wolf, the whole myth. The legend continues, and we were told that Romulus was the first of 7 kings. None of this is a fact. There are no historical records. Rome at the time really was not a kingdom. It was probably a little more than a village, and the Romans were a tribe, a primitive and rather archaic tribe that subsisted on agriculture and raising sheep. This map shows that by the year 500, so 250 years after the foundation, the Roman kingdom was a very small territory surrounded by larger populations. It had one strategic advantage, however. It was settled at the delta of the Tiber River, which is the main river in the area. In these 250 years, the monarchy period, Rome was exposed to influences from the outside, in particular the Greeks that established some colonies nearby. The Romans eventually got sick and tired of being ruled by a monarch, by a dictator, and invented a new form of government. The last king was dethroned, and a new form of government was put in its place. And to an extent, we can say that the Romans invented the modern form of government, the res publica, the public thing, the public good. The power of the state was in the Senate. The Senate is an assembly of representatives from the most powerful, from the richest families, and also included military leaders, ambassadors, philosophers, and other relevant members of society. To avoid the danger of tyranny, the Senate elected 2 leaders. They're called consuls, who stayed in power only for 1 year. The most important values in this period are personal virtue and military valor, courage. The Senate and the senators are expected to be role models for society and to act in the interest of the community. The enemies are corruption and the accumulation of individual power for self-interest. The motto of the Republic is Senatus Populusque Romanorum, the Senate and the people of the Romans. The symbol, the icon, is the bundle of sticks, which indicates unity. It symbolizes the fact that one stick by itself can be broken, but a bundle of sticks altogether will not be broken. There is an axe sticking out, which indicates the willingness to use military force to defend the unity. The basic principles, the fundamental principles of the Republic, and even the symbols, are still present today in our lives. Guess who is using the bundle of sticks as a symbol of unity? And the motto of the American Republic is E pluribus unum, which means from many one. And again, it emphasizes the notion of unity. A new state means new institutions. Aside from the Senate, the new institutions that are invented and created by the Romans are primarily the administration of the country and the administration of justice. Justice requires laws. And again, the Roman Republic invents new principles and new concepts on which to base the welfare of the community. The basic laws of the country, what we today would call the Constitution, are set in the so-called 12 tables that establish the limits of power that the government can have on individuals. These principles are still followed today with their Latin names. If you ever paid attention to the decisions of the American Supreme Court, you must have heard about concepts such as habeas corpus and stare decisis, for instance. Without a question, the most important invention of Roman jurisprudence is the concept of citizenship. Not all inhabitants are citizens. Slaves are not citizens. People that are conquered by the Romans do not become automatically Roman citizens. The law gives citizens certain rights, most important of which they cannot be arrested and taken to prison without a legal, clear, legitimate process. Now, these principles are not present from the very beginning, of course, but they are the result of a process, of an evolution. So, 753, foundation of Rome. Rome is a negligible entity surrounded by larger states that all have in common a rather archaic form of government. When Rome adopts the new form, the Republic, thanks to the strength of its institutions, it begins a period of first consolidation and then very rapid expansion. The Republic had absorbed among the other people the Latins, who gave the Romans their language, by the way, and by the year 300, Rome starts taking off very rapidly. First, it conquers surrounding territories, and then very quickly expands first through southern Italy, then northern Italy, and in a matter of few decades begins the conquer of Europe. The first country to be taken over is southern France, what we call now southern France, and Spain. Next targets are the Balkans and Greece, which infuses Romanity with a tremendous amount of culture. But the most important conquer strategically is northern Africa. It begins with the takeover of Tunisia, which at the time was Carthage and dominated the Mediterranean Sea. Power and wealth breed corruption, not surprisingly, and the richer Rome became, the more corrupt and the more decadent and self-indulgent it became. The Roman traditional republican values and valors were abandoned and trashed. When Caesar is assassinated, the game basically is over for the Senate. By this time, the Senate has lost any of its moral and ethical authority. The Senate is corrupt. The military is corrupt. Everybody's looking out for their own personal interest and for accumulation of power. It's not a coincidence that this is the moment when Julius Caesar sees that the Senate is almost irrelevant, has no longer any power, and decides to step in and wants to be appointed dictator in perpetuity. Caesar is prevented from becoming the absolute ruler because he is assassinated, but about 20 years later, in 27, after another very long and protracted civil war, his adopted son Octavianus becomes the first emperor of Rome. Formally, the Senate still exists, but it has only a purely symbolic function. The real power is in the hands of the emperor and the army. And we come to the year 1 of the Common Era, which is traditionally accepted as the year when Jesus was born. According to the tradition and the Gospels, Jesus starts his ministry, starts preaching when he is 30 years old, and 3 years later he is, as we all well know, he is killed by the Romans. He is crucified. By the year 55, when Nero becomes emperor, the Christians have already reached Rome and are becoming a very relevant force in Roman society, to the point where the emperor is nervous about these individuals and sees them as a potential threat to his power. Why and how Christianity became so important and expanded so rapidly are questions that scholars have been trying to answer for at least 20 centuries, with millions and millions, literally, of pages written about it. For the believers, for Christians, the answer is very simple. This is the true faith, therefore, that's why it is triumphant. But if we look for different and more structural type of answers, we are seeing that in this period there is a transition from what we call polytheistic religions to monotheistic religions, from a pantheon made of many gods to the concept and the idea of one single God. And it is a trend, a cultural force that also encompasses the concept of the state. The invention of this ruler, the emperor, who is both secular, the head of state, and also who is the representation, not the representative, the representation of God on earth, are kind of converging. So it could have been a cultural shift. It could have been a normal process of cultural development and evolution, or it could have been the influence of various monotheistic religions that are entering the Roman Empire at this point. Christianity was just one of the many religions, monotheistic religions, practiced by small groups or larger groups at the time that begin to make inroads into Roman culture. Christianity, which originates in Judaism, enters Rome by means of the Jewish colony that already existed in Rome. Many of them eventually moved over or converted, if you want, to this new evolution of the Judaic thought. Rome was the capital of the empire, therefore it attracted a large number of people from other parts of the empire. Among the others, the Persian colony was rather strong and important. Persians, in large part, practiced a monotheistic religion called Zoroastrianism. Okay, now repeat slowly after me. Zoroastrianism, a religion that posited the existence of two gods, a good God and an evil God. And also from Persia came the religion of the Sol Invictus, the unconquerable, undefeatable sun, the sun god, Mithras. And it attracted an enormous amount of followers, believers, particularly in the armed forces. The sun god religion, Mithras, was enormously influential in Rome and even extended its influence on Christianity. The birth of Mithras was celebrated on December 25th. This religion is older than Christianity, and it's only later that Christians agree on December 25th as the birthday of Jesus. Out of this period of enormous cultural changes, Christianity emerged as the winner. A religion that initially was persecuted, slowly was tolerated, and then accepted into the fabric of society. By the 4th century, with Emperor Constantine, it actually formally and officially became part of the Roman power structure. Some go as far as saying that Christianity became the official religion of the empire. That is questionable. There is no doubt, however, that Christianity had become the dominant religion of the Roman Empire and eventually will become the dominant religion of the Western world and beyond. Its effect in Italy and on Italians will be felt and are still felt to this very day, and we will have a chance to explore this particular line of cultural development in the next few lectures.